So much. It's all about working together. People from the academia together with people from the industry, together with the government. It's all about working together. This is a very, very important message that we should all take. Our next speaker is Alejandro Mayorkas. Alejandro Mayorkas was sworn as the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security on December 2013 in the United States, right? He is the second in command of the department with $60 billion budget and a workforce of, listen carefully, 240,000 people throughout the world. Prior to becoming the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas served as the Director of the Department's United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. The agency is in charge of operating the largest immigration system in the world. He has a rich background. We can talk about that for a long time, but without further ado, I want to call to the stage Mr. Mayorkas. Please take the stage.
Good morning, Boker Tov. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here with you this morning and share a few thoughts. This morning I realized that this summer marks the 39th anniversary since my first visit to Israel. 39 years ago I visited family, I worked on a kibbutz, and I toured the country. These past two visits over the course of the last year, I have visited in my official capacity, yet nevertheless I feel just as much at home this past year and now as I did 39 years ago. It is not only because of my family resident here in Israel or my love of this country, but importantly because of the friendship and partnership that I have forged with a number of officials of the Israeli government, chief among them, Dr. Matanya. And I appreciate that and I'm grateful for that. I thought what I would do is just share a few thoughts about the landscape in the United States domestically in terms of our federal government's efforts, speak a bit about the international fora in which we operate to address our cybersecurity challenges, and then to share with you what I deem to be an imperative for the future. Back home in the United States, the federal government is in the process of really reorganizing itself to best meet the cybersecurity challenges that we confront. Significantly, the Department of Homeland Security has been placed in the point position, the tip of the spear, if you will, on behalf of the federal government, not only to drive the security of federal government departments and agencies throughout the administration, but critically to be the point in a public-private partnership to ensure that the federal government and the private sector is working together to address a challenge that confronts us both. And in this regard, the critical architecture that we are developing is the architecture of information sharing. That is one of the edifices or institutions that we are building, and the second is a response protocol that is unique to the cybersecurity challenge. In normal criminal law, the focus of attention on behalf of the government is the identification and apprehension of the perpetrator to address the threat in the first instance. In the cybersecurity realm, we recognize that the identification and certainly the apprehension of the perpetrator can be so very difficult. That perpetrator could be across the world. Cybersecurity, as we know, knows no boundaries. And importantly, therefore, it is critically necessary to ensure that we exfiltrate the harm and we remediate and repair it. And so the ability to protect the asset in the cybersecurity realm can be more important than the apprehension of the wrongdoer. And between those two architectures, the sharing of information and the response to the asset that is the target of a cybersecurity challenge, we are building really a new culture and a new institution in the federal government. We confront some challenges in doing so. The sharing of information between the private and the public sectors brings some challenges, as I mentioned. First, at a very nascent stage, industry, individuals, companies ask of us, what is really in it for us? What is the benefit for us to share information? And the answer is in one of the unique natures of the cyber crime, and that is the ease of replication. Just as a perpetrator victimizes one individual computer or one institution system, that harm can be replicated with ease and with tremendous speed. And so the ability to share information with the government so that the government in its unique position can disseminate the cyber threat information to others throughout the country will ensure that the replication of the harm never materializes. And so even though we're at a nascent stage of this information sharing architecture, I am confident because of our abilities and the capabilities that we are developing that we will indeed instill this culture in the private and the public sector. The second obstacle that we confront, quite frankly, is the issue of trust. There is still a chasm of distrust between the private sector and the federal government. And I personally believe that to some extent we still are operating as a federal government, and certainly in the cyberspace, in the shadow of the Snowden disclosures of several years ago. And the question arises, when an individual or an institution shares information with the government, what will the government do with that information? And the legislation that Congress implemented at the end of 2014 and the policies that we have implemented since that critical piece of legislation provides adequate protection in that regard. In addition, there's a concern about accountability. Some of our independent regulatory agencies have brought actions against institutions when those institutions have revealed inadequate cybersecurity processes to protect shareholders, to protect customers, and to protect consumers more broadly. And so the accountability regime in our country serves as a point of hesitation in an institution's willingness to share information with us. And of course, there is the issue of civil liability, not just government action, but consumer litigation should the information provided reveal a level of negligence. This too, the legislation and our policies have guarded against. There is anonymity if one so chooses when one wants to provide information to the government. There is liability protection, and there is the confidentiality of the information once we in the Department of Homeland Security receive it. I think that our ability, our unique position to receive information and to disseminate it broadly really is a galvanizing force in the information sharing architecture that we see as critical to the future. There is one element to it from a market perspective that I would implore people to embrace, and that is the notion of a public good. The cyber threat indicator itself is now a commodity that is of value in the marketplace. The cybersecurity industry has blossomed and has grown so significantly beyond the mere possession and dissemination of the cyber threat indicator that that indicator need no longer be treated as a commodity and should be treated as a public good. If we share the cyber threat indicators with one another, we can achieve the goal that I previously articulated, and that is to ensure that a vulnerability once discovered is not twice exploited. And if in fact one institution shares that vulnerability with another, if one has been victimized, let us be sure that the second and subsequent institutions that share that vulnerability are not similarly victimized. And we must share information, and specifically the cyber threat indicator, to achieve that result. One of the lessons of, I think, what we have experienced in the cybersecurity world is that to go it alone is a very precarious endeavor, but to work together makes us all stronger and creates an ecosystem that will best protect us. And that leads me to turn to the international arena. We enjoy an extraordinarily close partnership with the State of Israel. Dr. Matanya and I have reached agreements in the past, and we are, in fact, going to be signing an agreement together tomorrow to embark on an automated information sharing protocol together. And that is a capability that we in the Department of Homeland Security have developed, the ability to receive information in automated form and to disseminate it in near real time in automated form as well. And I say in near real time because critically I spoke of the confidentiality provisions and the ability to protect privacy interests, and that we are able to do in seconds and minutes. The cybersecurity threat is, of course, borderless. So just as we proselytize the sharing of information domestically, we proselytize it in the international arena as well. And information must be shared between and amongst countries with through their computer emergency response teams in CERT-to-CERT relationships and otherwise. We must also ensure that countries follow the well-established international norms. We are pleased that we were able to negotiate an agreement with the Republic of China to ensure that it abided by the international norms, and critically the norm that it will not engage in cyber conduct to steal secrets for the commercial advantage of entities operating in its domain. And of course, with respect to cooperation, there is a critical need to share our research and development and to share our innovations, of which Dr. Matanya spoke. And in that regard, the United States and Israel also share a very strong bond and a very strong partnership. The United States, with our remarkable resources, our technological innovation, and the dynamism of our tech community, can certainly be a leader in cybersecurity across the globe. Our close partner and great ally, a much smaller country, Israel, is and can be as well. And I think that's for a number of unique reasons, not just its extraordinarily brilliant individuals working not only in universities and in government, but in the private sector in close partnership with those institutions, but also because of the architecture that Dr. Matanya spoke of and has developed. It is an extraordinarily high priority of the Prime Minister and the government as a whole to ensure that the cybersecurity is a result of tremendous investment of talent and funds to ensure the cybersecurity of the nation. It is, as Dr. Matanya mentioned, a direct report to the Prime Minister, which reflects the prioritization of this critical agenda. It is also, quite frankly, Israel's position in the world as a leader is also, quite frankly, because of the visionary leadership of Dr. Matanya himself. I have had the privilege and the pleasure of working with Dr. Matanya for well over a year now, and I think he is one of the most thoughtful leaders in this space that the world has, and we can all benefit from following the model of Israel and listening to and adhering to the vision of some of its leaders. The tech industry in Israel is growing by leaps and bounds, and it also has the unique ability to recruit talent through military service, through the identification of individuals with the talent needed to develop the cybersecurity of tomorrow. Israel, along with the United States and other nations, is poised to work as a collaborative partner to ensure that our ecosystem in a united way is stronger today than it is tomorrow. It's interesting, I spoke with a government official, a local government official in the United States recently, and one of the topics in our conversation was the question whether our security can keep pace with our technological innovations. We were remarking on the news that the virtual currency Ether had been victimized by a cyber attack despite the best of defenses. And the official asked me what we can do to make sure that the driverless car of tomorrow is secure given its reliance on technology. And I impressed upon him that tomorrow is already here today. Last year I spoke at a conference of hackers in Las Vegas, Nevada, a conference known as DEF CON, and immediately preceding my remarks was a presentation by the two individuals that hacked into a Chrysler automobile and took over its operating system. And so we cannot think that tomorrow is too far away when we speak of the need to ensure that security keeps pace with technological innovation. That tomorrow is here. We are all gathered here today because of that reality. And if I leave you with one message, it is the message of the need for all of us to work together to make each of us stronger and more secure. Thank you very much.